L'Oreal, Clairol, and Revlon, these are dyes that are packed with chemicals that are linked to hormonal disruption, cancer, and oxidative stress that may actually speed up your graying. And most women are using these every 6 weeks for decades. In today's episode of Heal Thyself, I'm naming the worst offenders. I'm breaking down which brands are better and exposing the ones on the market that are clean but really aren't. And if you've been wondering if gray hair is just inevitable, it is not. I've created a full 5-part protocol to help slow or even reverse graying. Yes, I said it. That includes internal nutrients, lifestyle support, topicals, emerging therapies, and a long-term plan to tie it all together. People have been asking me to review hair dyes, and I guess I didn't get around to it. There was other things that I wanted to speak about, but hair dye is really important because I really did some research and found out how many people are using hair dye. A lot of people are using hair dye. It is a major, major thing. And when I think about what hair dye does to the body, I think about, whoa, okay, it's a little bit over a long term. And people use hair dye for a very long time. And so I really wanted to start with the basics. Hair dye is one of the most widely used personal care products in the world. I remember my mom used to dye her hair when I was little. I was like, what are you doing in the bathroom there? And it was just a regular thing that I remember seeing. But globally, the hair dye market is now valued at $20 billion, and that number is rising. In the United States alone, it is estimated that more than 70% of women over the age of 40 regularly dye their hair. And when you zoom in even further, there's about 50 million boxes of hair dye sold every single year. That's not just a trend. That is a whole dang ritual. It's deeply embedded. It is emotionally reinforced, right? We dye our hair because we feel an emotional connection to not having grays. And it's a weekly or monthly ritual. Like I remember for my mom, it was a monthly ritual. She always was in the bathroom and got her hair dyed. And then she would sometimes go get her hair dyed at the beautician or whatever. But here's what I want you to think about. What's really driving this demand, right? It's not just gray hair. It's not just style. There's a psychological component. Hair dye has been brilliantly marketed, not just as beauty enhancement, but as the solution to the problem, really, that you're taught to hide. And this is from a young age. Women are bombarded with those messages to stay youthful, to cover those grays, to don't let your age show. You're only as beautiful as your last color, right? This is all over. The beauty industry has got a lot of money, and it's got a lot of good researchers and scientists. And much like the diet industry, it's often rooted in fear. And what's the biggest thing that sells? Fear of aging. So the result is we have this emotional attachment. Many men and women are dyeing their hair, not just because it's cosmetic, because it's tied to identity, self-worth, confidence in work, even in relationships. The industry knows this. It ain't dumb, right? That's why you hear brands saying things like, feel confident again, right? Because you lost your confidence. Reveal a younger you because you're old. Or the infamous say goodbye to grays, right? Because they're so bad. So all of that's strategic, and it's designed to keep you in that cycle of fear and spending money, and at sometimes at the cost of your long-term health. Let me be clear. It's not about shaming people for dyeing their hair. It's about empowering you to understand what exactly is happening. What are you being sold? Is there a safer, more aligned option? How come we don't know about it? Right? Because once someone understands what are the drivers in the marketing language, we begin to ask really much better questions. So what actually causes gray hair? When does it start? Can it be reversed? Can it be slowed down? What are we putting on our scalp every few weeks when we're dyeing it? Right? We cover all of these today, but first I want to break down the actual science of graying hair. What causes it? What's going on biologically? When those first strands start to pop, that first moment where you're like, ooh, oh no, I see a gray hair, right? This is the moment. This isn't just about that surface level change. Graying is actually a biological shift that is happening deep at the follicle level. And it's more complex than you're just getting older. When we start with the basics, hair gets its color from a pigment called melanin. It's inside each hair follicle. And there are specialized cells called melanocytes, and they're basically the factories that produce melanin. They feed it, they grow the hair strand, they are the factories. But as we age, these melanocytes, or these cells, they slow down. They eventually shut down. The factories go out of business. No melanin equals no color equals gray or white hairs. But why do they shut down? Because it's not just about age, it's actually about that oxidative stress. One of the leading theories and one of the strongest scientific back theories is that gray hair is caused by the buildup of something called hydrogen peroxide in the hair follicle itself. And it's the same chemical that you use to disinfect a wound. Remember, like that dark brown bottle that you would have in the pantry, you cut yourself, your mom would put it on there and would start bubbling up. Well, hydrogen peroxide is produced in the body. It's in the follicles. There's low amounts of it. But when the levels go unchecked, they actually start to bleach the hair from the inside out. And this was confirmed in 2009 in a study in FASEB journal where researchers found that aging hair follicles produce less of an enzyme called catalase. Now, catalase is important because it breaks down hydrogen peroxide into water and oxygen, and then it's there, it's fine, and it's depleted, and you're good. But hydrogen peroxide will build up and damage the melanocytes. It's like a little fire, it's a factory fire, and it halts the pigment production. But it doesn't stop there. I want to talk about something crucial for your health, your vascular system. Did you know that your vascular health underpins everything in your body? From how vibrant your skin looks to how well your organs and muscles function, it's all about healthy blood flow. But here's the thing, factors like stress, sugar, and even natural aging can damage the delicate endothelial glycocalyx. That's where our friends at Clairol come in. They have a product called Arterial Sil HP. It's the only supplement with Monotum RS. It is a unique seaweed-derived ingredient specifically shown to restore the endothelial glycocalyx. They also have a product called Vascanox HP, which provides nitric oxide support for up to 24 hours, helping your blood vessels relax and deliver blood where it's most needed. And right now, Clairol is offering a special deal exclusively for you, the Heal Thyself listener. Head over to clairol.com/DRG and you're going to save $50 when you purchase Vascanox or the Arterial Sil bundle. Plus, you'll get a free canister of 2-in-1 nitric oxide test strips with a 3-pack bundle purchase. Visit clairol.com/DRG. That is CALROY.com/DRG. Oxidative stress also is going to come from external and internal sources. So here's really important stuff. Environmental toxins, we know that. Smoking, emotional stress. We see a lot of people go through emotional turmoil and their hair starts going gray. Yes, it's oxidative stress. Poor diet for sure, causing oxidative stress. Inflammation, nutrient deficiency, oxidative stress. Now, all of these feed the same fire. Basically, it's those free radicals from that stress damaging the hair pigment machinery. Some people may be more genetically susceptible to this. There are gene variants. And if you have a certain gene variant, that can influence how early or aggressively someone might gray. You might remember someone from high school already graying, or so after you graduated, someone in college, their hair was going gray. That might be more of a genetic thing because genes don't really guarantee the outcome. They kind of just set the stage, right? And your lifestyle, that's what directs the play. So something really important, when most of us start graying, especially in women, when they start to gray in the late 30s and early 40s, that's not a coincidence. It's that time of massive hormonal transition, changing stress loads, nutritional shifts. If you had children and you're working and raising a family and under stress and not sleeping well, maybe drinking, maybe caffeine, maybe wine, more than you like to admit, all of that adds up. And the hair follicle is paying attention. We also have recent research that shows that chronological, psychological stress plays a really important role in depleting the melanocyte stem cells. So they're not regrowing. There's no factories being built anymore. In 2020, a Harvard study published in Nature, the researchers found that in mice, intense stress caused irreversible loss of melanocyte stem cells in the follicle. What does that mean? Well, chronic stress is going to equal permanent graying. Now, does this mean if you meditate every other day, you are going to not go gray? No, it doesn't. But it does mean that your nervous system matters. Your hair doesn't just start graying in isolation. It's deeply connected to your mitochondria, your nutrient stores, your stress hormones, your whole internal terrain. So when people ask me, can I reverse my hair graying? The answer is sometimes. But more realistically, you can often slow it down, and you could slow it down significantly. That's a good thing. The melanocytes can go dormant, but not dead. And there's a chance they can actually be revived. If you have the right nutritional, hormonal, and stress balance interventions, you might revive them. But if they're gone, the hair may stay gray. This is why early intervention is key. All right, so to tie this part up, graying is not just aging, it's a reflection of really your internal stress, that internal environment, that oxidative load that nutrient status, that buildup of hydrogen peroxide in the follicle, that's the major culprit. So when we have stress and inflammation, that's all playing a role. Genetics matter, but it's not the full story, right? And there's evidence that in some cases, actually, graying can be slowed, graying can be reversed. But you really want to start supporting your system now. You don't want to wait till you're fully gray, right? 10 years, 20 years down the road. We're going to explore the real issues behind this. What's actually in hair dye, why the solution you're using to cover gray may be making things worse. So let's look at the chemical cocktail in hair dye. All right, now that we understand what's really causing gray, let's talk about the solution that most people, especially women, are sold. And it's the one they've been using for years and sometimes decades, hair dye. Specifically, we're talking about conventional hair dye. It's marketed as harmless, glamorized. It's got beautiful packaging, models, commercials, high-end salons, endorsed by celebrities. But what is actually inside that tube of dye? Right? Let's pull back the curtain. There are two main types of hair dye. Permanent oxidative dyes, right? And these are the most common ones. They penetrate the hair shaft and they stay until the hair grows out or is redyed. And then there's semi-permanent dyes. These coat the hair, but they don't really penetrate as deeply and they end up fading over time. But we're really going to focus on those permanent dyes because that is what the majority of people and women over 35 are using to cover gray hair long term. And these formulas are anything but clean. They're actually problematic. When I did the research on them, they're actually problematic. There's key toxic ingredients in hair dyes. Number one, if you have hair dye, put this on pause, go to your pantry in the bathroom, open it up, open up the cabinet, see if it has something called PPD, paraphenylenediamine. Okay, PPD, paraphenylenediamine. PPD is one of the most notorious chemicals in hair dye, and it's what gives permanent dyes their thick, rich, dark pigment. It's also a potent allergen, a sensitizer, and suspected mutagen. That means it can affect your cells and mutate your cells. PPD is so reactive that in Europe, it's actually required to carry a strong warning label. And in some countries, it's restricted or banned outright. It's been linked to skin irritation, contact dermatitis, respiratory reactions, immune dysregulation just from hair dye. And in lab studies, it actually shows the potential to disrupt DNA and cause damage. Number two, resorcinol. This is a known endocrine hormone disruptor, meaning it can totally disrupt everything. It interferes with thyroid function, estrogen pathways. It's a skin irritant. When it's combined with hydrogen peroxide, it creates even more reactive compounds in the body. Number three is ammonia. You heard of this one. Ammonia is in there because it's used to open the hair cuticle so the dye can actually penetrate. But it's really harsh. It strips the hair, it dries the scalp, it messes with your scalp biome. It can cause respiratory irritation, and actually prolonged exposures are connected to chronic cough, asthma, skin sensitivity. Number four, toluene. This one's nasty. This is a solvent and a neurotoxin. It's terrible for your nervous system, and it's found in darker shades of dye, and it's associated with headaches, dizziness, and in higher doses, it can really affect your central nervous system and your brain. Toluene is harmful, especially during pregnancy. You want to stay away from dyeing your hair with anything with toluene during pregnancy because it's been linked to developmental toxicity in animal studies, okay? 5, fragrance, SLS, parabens. I've talked about these from shampoos. I talked about these from colognes. I talked about these in skincare. Many hair dyes contain this synthetic cocktail, right? This fragrance cocktail, and phthalates, which are going to affect your hormones, sodium lauryl sulfate and parabens, which affect your hormones. They're irritants to the body. You just want to stay away from them. So how do these chemicals get into your body? Basically, hair dye is going directly to the scalp. And guess what? There's a lot of blood vessels in your scalp. Right? So studies show that chemicals like PPD and toluene, they penetrate in the skin and get right to the bloodstream, especially when you're doing it regularly over the years. Once it's in the body, these compounds are metabolized by the liver, yes, but they can cause stress on the way. They can cause inflammation. They can create DNA damage. And in a study in the International Journal of Cancer showed that women who used permanent hair dye at least once every 5 to 8 weeks had a higher risk of breast cancer, particularly for Black women. Other studies have shown that hair dye is linked to bladder cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, leukemia. And let me be clear, the research is not black and white, right? But we're talking about chemicals that accumulate over time. It's not a one-time use. And we're combining it with the overall toxic load. Skin, air pollution, plastics, processed foods, this adds up. And actually, when it comes to women, most women who dye their hair do it every 6 to 8 weeks, right? For 20, 30, 40 years. That's hundreds of applications directly into the scalp, not just one box of dye, lifetime of absorption. And now you have vulnerable periods. And there are time periods that actually are more sensitive, especially as I mentioned before, pregnancy, fetal development is most sensitive to these hormonal disruptions, perimenopause, right? Hormonal shifts already when you have things in motion is problematic when it's being insulted by different toxins. Autoimmune conditions where inflammation is already high. In these windows, the impact is actually amplified. So what's the takeaway? Most conventional hair dyes contain a toxic cocktail of inflammatory, hormone disrupting chemicals. They absorb directly through the scalp into the blood system, and you don't have your informed consent. So if your health is a priority, you deserve to know what's in that bottle and what it's doing to you over time. You deserve better options. And that's what we're going to do in this next section. What dyes are better? So now that you know what's lurking in most conventional hair dyes, I want to talk to you about specifics. What are the worst brands out there? Which ones are doing better? Which ones are truly safe? Let's start with the conventional offenders. We know these are the big ones you see in drugstores, TV commercials, all around the world. L'Oreal, we spoke about that huge conglomerate. They have all of those chemicals that I mentioned. You want to stay away from them. Clairol, they have the nice and easy hair dye, Natural Instincts. Sounds gentle, definitely not. Greenwashing. The dyes contain, especially resorcinol. They contain the paraben, synthetic fragrance. They have ammonia-free versions, but when you have an ammonia-free version, you have harsh alkaline agents that are going to irritate the scalp the same way. It's kind of like when they say BPA-free. Revlon, another one. It's a long-standing drugstore favorite. It's got old, outdated formulas, past safety standards, a lot of those chemicals we want to stay away from. Look, if the brand doesn't fully disclose its ingredients or they use ambiguous terms like fragrance, proprietary blend, natural extracts, without really the full transparency of what it is, just stay away. So here are brands that are doing better, not perfect, but better. These are brands that actually use plant-based colorants, are free from ammonia, PPD, resorcinol. They have transparent labeling. They offer low reactivity options, especially for those who are very sensitive. One is Hairprint. This is one of the cleanest ones that are out in the market right now, and it was founded by scientist John Warner. See, Hairprint doesn't use traditional dyes at all. What it does is it restores your hair's natural pigment, right? It has something called a biomimetic process that helps rebuild melanin at the structure. And it has none of that PPD stuff, ammonia, peroxide, artificial fragrance. It uses food grade ingredients like manganese and ferrous gluconate. The downside is it only works really on darker hair, black hair, brown hair, not for blondes, not for reds, and it requires a bit more time to apply. But this is actually the closest thing to truly non-toxic hair color that we've seen. Radico is an Ayurvedic herbal hair color brand that uses plant powders. It has henna, indigo, amla, no synthetic chemicals, no artificial dyes. It works for all hair types, fully transparent, lab tested for heavy metals and pesticides. And the results vary by individual. Color options are limited, right? The application is more of a ritual. It's a longer process. It may have an earthy smell, you'll notice. It's still very clean option, especially for those avoiding synthetics altogether. Always another one. Always stands for Organic Way, is a professional salon grade brand. It's coming from Italy. They use biodynamic botanical essential oils and they have low toxic color systems. It's not 100% chemical free, but it's free from ammonia, PPD, synthetic fragrance, and many of those outbranching lines from that umbrella term. They use coconut-based surfactants, natural emulsifiers, and they are made in glass. So it's definitely one of the cleaner salon level brands. It's best used in those holistic salon settings where they have proper ventilation, which is actually a whole show in itself, and where they're actually taking care of the customers. Natratint, this is another cleaner drugstore option. It's free of ammonia, parabens, uses plant-based ingredients, less PPD than the traditional dyes, but it still contains small amounts of PPD and ethanolamine. It's a transitional brand, right? It's from conventional to getting better. All right, so you're hearing all this and now you're rethinking about what you're doing with your life. What am I going to do? And it's not about like the guilt or shame that, you've been doing this for a while, but now you have like every show that we try to put out there, informed consent. It's about really making the next decision. What are you going to do now? Right? So if you really need to dye your hair, and you don't want to go with any of those natural brands, stretch out the time in between colorings, switch to semi-permanent or root touch-up products with better safety profiles. You know what to look for now. Consult with a holistic salon that uses like an Oway or a Radico, something to transition, hair print if it matches your hair type. Even reducing the exposure by 50% over the next year can actually drastically lower your toxic load. And look, it may be hard to believe based on all the marketing, but beauty is not defined by chemical alterations, right? It's how you feel in your body. It's your aura. It's what people feel. But with that said, I promise you this, and we're going to do it. A full protocol to help you detox from these chemicals and potentially slow or even reverse graying. Yes, you're going to get the Dr. G protocol. All right. So I want to give you the full protocol. What are we going to do? The anti-graying protocol. What are we going to do? Let's bring this all together. You now know why gray hair happens, how conventional dyes may accelerate the problem, and what brands are safer. And what if we zoom out even further and actually support the entire internal system that governs hair pigmentation, right? Because graying isn't just a hair issue. It's a nervous system issue. It's a mitochondrial issue. It's a nutrition issue. It's a chronic stress issue, right? So I'm going to give you my integrative, evidence-based, informed protocol to help you slow, prevent, or even in some cases, reverse graying hair. Let's break it down into 5 parts: the internal support, the lifestyle, the alignment, the topical strategy, and the advanced therapies for the long-term perspective. Let's get into it. Internal system. This is where it starts. You can't change what your hair is doing externally until you support what's going on internally at the follicle, at the cell, at the mitochondria within the cell. Here are some nutrient essentials. If you have graying hair, here's where you want to start. Several vitamins and minerals play a massive role in melanocyte function. Remember those factories, the production of melanin. B12 deficiency, huge. A lot of people have it. When I was in practice, a lot of people had it. And it's a known cause for premature graying. Low folate, big one. A lot of people have low folate. Disrupts methylation at a cellular level. So you're not getting cellular regeneration. So you want to use methylated forms of B12 and folate. Copper, crucial. Crucial, it's because it's a cofactor in an enzyme called tyrosinase. And that helps produce melanin. And studies link copper deficiency to early graying. So you might want to talk to your doctor about low dose copper, 1 to 2 milligrams daily, right? You get tested ideally first. Zinc and iron, another one. Helps support red blood cell production, formation, oxygenation, follicular health. Iron deficiency anemia can actually be a hidden driver of hair changes, hair loss, but also graying. So again, you might want to get tested for that. Biotin, we know it supports the strength of hair, the keratin infrastructure. It's not necessarily for graying, but it's going to improve overall hair quality. And that's what you want to do. Remember I said oxidative stress leading to melanocyte destruction, basically, right? So oxidative stress is the enemy here. It's a thing that we want to avoid. So we want to neutralize it, right? We want to actually bring back the enzyme that breaks down, especially that hydrogen peroxide in the follicle that is causing so much graying. Now, catalase is that enzyme. Now, can you supplement catalase? Yeah. It may lower hydrogen peroxide buildup over time. Some early evidence also supports this. We found that things like broccoli, kale, beef liver can actually support this process. We found that alpha-lipoic acid can actually regenerate other antioxidants like glutathione and vitamin C. It can support that mitochondrial function that is so important for those melanocytes. Vitamin C, glutathione, you're going to help recycle antioxidants and clear those reactive oxygen species that are causing so much inflammation. PQQ, I love this one. I don't want to say the full name because I always mess it up, but PQQ, you can just type it in. It really helps support the mitochondria. How does it do it? It helps the growth of new mitochondria, biogenesis, and neuroprotective. It protects the brain, protects the nervous system. It's an antioxidant, and it reduces, possibly, cellular aging. L-tyrosine, I will say 2 of these already are in the matcha that I'm coming out with. It's an amino acid precursor for melanin. It helps reduce the stress response. You can find formulations like these. They have things like catalase plus, antioxidant plus, tyrosine in these forms, but it really helps with graying. Alignment is really important. This is where people either succeed or stall. Hair grows in cycles, and those cycles are very sensitive to stress and rhythm. You want to work on your nervous system regulation. This is so important. Please, if you want to reverse your grays, you really want to work on your nervous system. Chronic stress will deplete the melanocyte cells. You want to do the meditations, the emotional releases, the breath works, the vagal toning, 30 minutes a day. You just want to keep your body in parasympathetic as much as you can. Get your circadian rhythm right. Melatonin will actually support follicle regeneration. That means getting to sleep at the right time consistently and waking up at the same time consistently, and prioritizing morning sunlight, no blue light an hour before bed, get in bed by 10:30. Blood sugar balance, glycation that is a result of blood sugar imbalance damages melanocytes. So keep your glucose levels low, making sure you're getting enough protein, fat, and fiber daily, especially in every meal. What about topically? Well, topicals can't fix a bad internal terrain, but they can actually stimulate something called localized activity to help restore some of those melanocytes. Yes, rosemary oil will increase circulation into the scalp. And some studies show that, yes, when it comes to hair loss, it's actually as effective as minoxidil. Now, we're not talking about hair loss, but we are talking about blood flow, and we want to get more blood flow to the scalp. You can even give it a massage. Caffeine serums may help. They can improve blood flow, reduce inflammation in the follicles. They even have catalase sprays. Remember that enzyme that really supports reversing the graying, right? It breaks down that hydrogen sulfide, the root of so much of this graying. Catalase sprays exist. Early evidence shows that applied topically, they may reduce that, but you want to really do scalp massage. What about red light therapy? Well, we're talking about mitochondria. It can actually stimulate mitochondrial activity in the follicle. And actually, some small studies show that improved hair thickness and pigment retention come when using red light therapy. Now, you want to use red light therapy at about 650 nanometers. Most red lights that you're going to buy commercially are going to have that. And what about advanced therapies? These are emerging and promising. They may not be widely available yet, but they're starting to gain traction. PRP, platelet-rich plasma therapy, is for the scalp. It can help regrow hair, but you're using your own blood and its own growth factors to revive dormant follicles. And it can help with hair growth, yes, and actually may help with the coloring of the hair too. Methylene blue, low dose topically. This is a new one in my research. I didn't know this even existed. It has antioxidant and mitochondrial enhancing properties, and animal and lab studies suggest it actually can protect the melanocytes from that oxidative stress. What about acupuncture? Yeah, actually traditional Chinese medicine. So when you get acupuncture, they may mention the kidney and liver meridians. These are connected to the graying of hair. And case studies show that pigment can actually return when systemic balance is restored through this. And lastly, long-term perspective, gray hair isn't a failure. It's just a signal of what's going on internally. Some people will have gray hair no matter what. They might be genetically graying sooner than others. And many are doing it because they're under pressure, whether it's emotionally, environmentally, nutritionally. The protocol is not about perfection. It's about you actually creating the terrain to give your cells the ability to do what they do. So we work in the internal, we work on the external, and you might actually see some improvement. Give yourself a few hair cycles, right? 3 to 6 months minimum before you start seeing any change. Let's stop normalizing toxic products. Let's stop covering up what our body's telling us. Let's start supporting things at the roots, right? Literally and figuratively. You don't need another box of hair dye. You need a new way of seeing your health, right? The future when it comes to beauty is biological. It's our own sovereignty, right? Your hair, your graying hair, it's a map. Learn how to read it, right? In this episode, we covered so much, right? We learned about which brands to stay away from. We learned about which brands are doing right by us. And I hope you came away feeling informed, empowered, and clear.